Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from LastCar.info, and welcome to Behind the Wall, the post-race show that comes on after the race, and where, unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection, Ross Chastain has prevailed in a dramatic finish in the Coca-Cola World 600, beating a dominant William Byron in the closing stages. A good old-fashioned green flag finish to the race there. A good long distance battle. Denny Hamlin, another driver in the mix there. Some issues with fuel mileage there in the mix. Really, really enjoyable race, first and foremost. Congratulations to Chastain, coming from last on the grid, mind you, in a backup car after an incident in practice. Pretty hard accident, in fact. Where he had smashed the wall with the driver's side of the car. Looked like they were going to be able to make repairs to the car initially, but NASCAR said they had to go to a backup. Luckily, it being a home track, it wasn't too difficult for them to get something together. But even then, the crew itself had to stay up to many long hours to get it ready up into the early morning hours. Had not much sleep here coming into this. Being the longest race of the year. What a taxing experience for everybody on the team. But everybody stepped up, the crew, the driver, and just a huge team effort after what's been a pretty lackluster year for Team Trackhouse. A little bit into last year. Yes, Chastain won not too awful long ago, although it felt like a long time to him in his interview there. A fantastic effort. Now, in point of fact, he didn't quite start in the 40th spot. Looking at the back of the field there, actually Josh Bilicki and Derek Kraus had dropped to the back of the field there right before the start, but he was credited with 40th in the lineup there. He was originally the 40th qualifier, and of course that's going to reflect itself in the results. But regardless, 38 or 40, one way or the other, especially in a year where this is only the second 40-car field we've even had all year. Of course, we actually had 41 back in the Daytona 500, but only the second time all season we've had a full field in a Cup Series race as well. Made that even more daunting there, but a tremendous effort through the race. Wasn't the most dominant car at all, but how often do we see it that, you have a driver that's really good before the sun goes down and then kind of fades out. You have another person that's kind of good at the transition, and then towards the end of the race, maybe it's somebody in the middle there, or maybe not. But somebody else just keeps up with the adjustments or has the right strategy, and it worked out that way. And much like at Darlington, where Byron was so dominant, he does not go home with the checkered flag here in the 600. Understandably disappointed, but that's just the nature of it. I mean, it was a good competitive race. It had just a little bit of everything playing out in it there too, and it was very entertaining. And another part of that that must be said is the first race weekend for the Amazon Prime deal. Now, understandably, people are frustrated about that in the sense of having to get another streaming service. Again, not everybody uses Prime, or has access to it. Obviously the deal, the way it was promoted is like, look, if you use the Prime service, which is usually the free shipping and all that, not a sponsored message at all, by the way, here on the show, that it's just kind of part of the program. The streaming service is part of it. And they do have kind of a free trial to help people out there on that as well, which is, again, it at least offsets some of that. This is something I think in the long term that NASCAR is going to have to worry about if we are getting closer to kind of the late 90s, early 2000s, where you had about a half dozen networks covering these races and so forth. But I think the thing that's most exciting about this is when you have a new broadcast partner, whatever it is, and whoever else is helping out behind the scenes there's always a potential for innovation and really trying to give it like a fresh breath of fresh air. I mean, think back to earlier this year when the CW started with the Xfinity broadcast, and they brought a great new graphics package there. Starting lineups actually show the cars. Parker Kligerman and Jamie McMurray have been singing their praises here on this show almost weekly for how great they've been serving in that. And of course, same thing with Prime and coming into the sport here and being a part of that. And right off the bat, I didn't watch practice or qualifying going into this one here. My first exposure to this broadcast was just the Cup race tonight. And right from the start, loved the intro, it reminded me so much of the Running Down a Dream segments and stuff like NBC did a couple years ago, or Bringing Back the Sunshine. Loved the old, like, the classic rock and the old clips that were used. I think much like with the Dale Earnhardt documentary, and I do want to talk about that more later in the show. There'll be some spoilers again for that. So if you haven't watched that yet, you may not want to watch the later part of this show tonight, because I want to kind of get into that a bit if you're interested. But we'll talk about the Cup Series, Xfinity trucks, Indy 500 and stuff beforehand. So we'll do that a bit later in the show. But much like with the Earnhardt thing, without getting into spoilers, I sense that the NASCAR Classics page and the unearthing of these old clips has really, really been something that NASCAR's embraced. They've started to really actually play with the toys they got in their toy box here. We saw this with the Earnhardt documentary. We saw that with that great Anthony Mackie segment that was done for the Daytona 500 this year. I thought that one actually brought me to tears. I thought that was the first really good Daytona 500 segment I've seen in quite a long time, probably going back to like 2008 at least. And then going into this broadcast and this one's lead in. And I loved how it integrated, knowing that it was going to be covering certain races. I like how it integrated footage from those races in the past and like other like historical landmarks in those areas. It's a wonderful idea. We got such an interesting collection when you got like Pocono in Michigan, the upcoming Mexico City race that everybody's excited about, and of course the 600, which we had tonight there. That really set the tone quite well. A lot of the people that are being involved in it there too, bringing a lot of former drivers into it, and not just like a figurehead deal, but like actually doing the work. Guys like Trevor Bayne working on pit road. Carl Edwards was so good in kind of the infield, kind of Chris Myers role. Such a breath of fresh air after Chris Myers has just been absolutely downright awful this year. I mean, I was kind of hedging my bets on this on the show after the Wilkesboro, but I mean, let's just face facts. He's been really, really bad this year. And it was so nice to get somebody new to just do it. And I thought Edwards did a great job. I know people have different feelings on LaJoie in there. He's a bit, not just from his driving career, but I mean, a bit quieter and so forth. But I thought he did a respectable job too. And Edwards, though, is just a complete natural. I mean, everybody knows how personable he's been from his racing career, and it was very much evident there. And it's just wonderful to have him involved in the sport. High marks for him too. This is where I turned to the booth there at the same time also. So again, Junior, bringing him back, obviously wherever he's going to be, it's going to be electric. He's really good at keeping an eye on what's actually happening on the track and responding to that, not just focusing on what's being on the screen, which is ultimately part of why he's made this transition from NBC to Prime. He seemed very comfortable. He picked up right where he left off with Amazon. I think he's still, kind of getting his feet under him there. But again, I think he's doing a really, really good job of jumping in there and describing the action. You kind of think about his interviews that he's had with, talking with like Rick Allen during his Junior podcast recently and some of the other segments. You kind of see where he's trying to figure that out. But I thought he did a fine job. And again, connecting to the sports history, again, he's been great in that role here as well. I thought that was really, really good. I'm less enthusiastic about Steve Letarte and especially Adam Alexander. And I know this is a bit controversial, but I have to stay consistent with this. I don't understand why they were so reluctant to not branch out and start something new. I think when you're a new broadcast partner, even if maybe, again, there's some connection to existing deals with Fox or NBC or whatever, I don't see why they didn't take this opportunity to establish somebody new in there. And this is a problem that's been for many years in this sport. I mean, we already have Adam Alexander doing the Xfinity Series races. Do we really need him to have him do this portion of the Cup Series schedule as well? I think it's unnecessary. When you got, you got Scott Brennan out there, when you got, Alan Bestwick out there doing the work with the Indy 500 still, when you have people that, again, are doing broadcasts for sim races online and many others that are still, working on their way to try to, working their way up there as well. I think that this was a really good opportunity to try it, and I'm a little disappointed that they didn't do that. And I know this was announced earlier that they're having Adam Alexander, but I I think that at this point, Adam Alexander is a known quantity, and that may be good or a known quantity. He's not going to be different just because he's on a different network or you put different people around him. After all, this is the person that was in the booth for all the different drivers only broadcasts and, brought different drivers in there and had different people in there every week. He's always just that same, consistent element, which is good. He's very good at doing the way that he does it, but it's not going to be an innovation there. And I think if Amazon really wanted to hammer this home, they should have had somebody new in the play-by-play position. They really, really, really needed to do that. And because this just, for all this race was very entertaining, and there were so many good elements that were working in this broadcast, and so many things were immediately better than Fox, whether it was the sound, the camera work, the side-by-side commercials, the introduction, the use of the music. The starting grid needs some work. It's still not showing the cars. I think the graphics package of the CW, if they integrated that into this, that probably would have been much better. I really like their graphics at the bottom of the screen instead of the side. I'm kind of falling out of love with the old version of the leaderboard there. But that would have been really good. And I think that would have made it, there should be kind of a rivalry between these different networks. And again, we do have to look at history in this sense, that you had Bob Jenkins and their group at ESPN. And yes, they kind of branched down to ABC there as well, but that was only like one or two races. And then you had TBS with their own deal, and Ken Squire, and then, to offshoot from CBS, where he was just doing like the 500 or Pocono, or maybe a couple races from that section there. And then you had Eli Gold and their group over at TNN, or Mike Joy getting thrown in the mix. There were some changes there along the way too. There was a lot of diversity there, and in these different talents. And I think it would be great. I think honestly, if you had each of these networks have their own identity, and again, if you like Adam Alexander, okay, yeah, you have him do his stuff with the CW or something like that, okay, but let's give somebody else a shot here at Amazon, or give somebody else a shot with NBC. Where's Lee Diffie again? Are we getting him back at the NBC portion? I don't even know if that's been announced one way or the other, but that would be great. Have each network have its own identity. You get some situations where you have some similar people there, but they should be as different as possible, to bring a different outlook on it. Otherwise, why bother having different networks doing it? I just don't see the point of it. So, again, I've not been a big fan of Adam Alexander. I know a lot of other people are, and so they're probably going to have issues with this. But I just think he's a bit overexposed, and I think he's just a known quantity, and we need to have somebody new. None of these broadcast partners are bringing in somebody new to do the play-by-play, and I don't understand why they're afraid of that. Like, it's so hard for somebody else to do it, or it's just impossible. We got people waiting in the wings. Again, bring Brennan in there. If they had Brennan in this broadcast to contextualize, because this is one of the many things that Adam's not that good at doing, is he's not good at bringing in the context of what happened through this race weekend. Again, Carson Hocevar being at the back of the field and working his way up there. And of course, yeah, you express disappointment over him blowing an engine. But let's talk about the fact that he was fastest in practice, that the only reason he started in the back was he spun out in the qualifying lap, probably because he was going for broke like he had in practice, and showing again how fast his car was. And if that was the case, maybe they would have been watching him earlier in the race and not just suddenly surprised that he was up there at that moment. I'm glad they also finally caught on to John Hunter Nemechek, but really needed to kind of, and I like the junior in particular seemed to really jump on that story there too, and kind of encourage Steve Letarte to talk much more about him there too, and seeing how Legacy Motor Club has advanced this year. I know earlier this year, I've been talking on this show about Legacy Motor Club turning it around, and everybody was like, oh, Brock, it's too early in the year to say that they're good in the Clash. It doesn't mean they're going to be good the rest of the year. Yeah, well, where are you now? John Hunter Nemechek is more top tens than he's had in all of last year. Could have had another one today if he hadn't bounced off the wall there towards the end and lost a couple of laps. He was right in the mix, and he was not by any means the only driver that was having problems here too at the same time. So again, it's my best metaphor for this is what actually happened in this race itself. In the early laps of this race, Josh Bilicki was losing several laps trying to get to the end of stage one. And he was told by Carl Long that he had actually run 15 lap scuff tires, except one of the tires on there was actually 23 lap scuff tires from Cody Ware's team. And they just cobbled this together to try to get to the end of stage one before they could hustle up some sticker tires and run more of the race at that point. To me, Adam Alexander is that 23 lap tire. It's not a wedding. You don't have to have something old and something new and something whatever. Let's just bring in, they need to be more bold with this and bring it up, because there's so many other parts that are just like really, really exciting. I love, again, I don't want this to sound overly negative. I know from some I seem to get this reputation, but I want it to be as good as it can be. And I think we have the beginnings of that here. But as and if Amazon stays in the sport for as long as we're hearing that, and hopefully they do, that they develop this new identity, but they're going to have to do it with new talent. And they started doing it by having Edwards and Bain and those guys there, but it's got to go all the way to the top. They can't just phone it in and bring in the same guys doing the CW, which before that did TNT and did all these other networks, and it's just been there constantly. We don't have to use the same people. We don't have to keep reshuffling the same chairs. We can get new chairs, and we can put other chairs in other places. So that's what we need to figure out. I'll be curious if one of these networks even kind of reverse engineers Race Hub and just puts Adam Alexander there again. I still don't understand why they even canceled that show. I never watched it, but I know a lot of people did, and a lot of them are big Adam Alexander fans. So I think that's another part of that there too. But again, I'm really excited to see where this is going. I thought the camera work was noticeably better. It was just a more enjoyable experience watching this race, separate and apart from the commentary on that. I felt like it was really, really enjoyable. It felt big. It felt important. It didn't feel like the end of a day where you have Monaco and the Indy 500 and everybody's tired and we're just going to kind of get through these 600-mile races at the end. Like we had with some of the Fox broadcasts and others here in recent years. It was enjoyable, and it worked out that it was a really competitive race. It was a really enjoyable race, and it had its share of storylines that, again, I felt the booth did a decent job of doing it. There just needed to be more, and maybe it's just because it's the first time out and their first time doing it, and maybe it'll get better through this summer. I always leave open the opportunity for that. We got some, again, very interesting venues coming up here between the Mexico City deal and some speedway racing and so forth. And it's going to be really interesting to see how all that works out. But it's a good baseline. It's a good baseline. I'm not willing to say that it's the greatest thing ever, but I think it's a very, very positive sign. And yeah, I think we're on a good track here. I liked that the graphics were very readable. I liked that, made it very easy to see the leaderboard. Again, I think they can just keep playing around with it. And I like that, yeah, they're playing it. They're paying attention to the history and doing a bit of that. But it just needs a little bit more, and it's daunting. I get it, especially for the 600 here, where so much is going on. You got Kyle Larson coming over from Indy after a pretty disappointing day and then getting in the car there. You got everything that's happened in practice leading up to it, but that's part of it. And it goes back to what Benny Parsons always said. How well have you done telling the story of the race? It's not just enough to react to when things happen, and maybe speculate about what you think could happen. It's like, okay, what's been happening up to this point? So that the viewer can finish watching this and be like, wow, I really experienced something. What do you think about this thing that happened or this thing that happened? And in the context of this season, for example, the hosts of our deal, we'll kind of go into the finishing result here. Absolute heartbreaker. Just as much as I remembered, I mentioned this early in the race when Nemechek was running so well, running in the top 5, getting it, being competitive, especially with Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell had a horrible time trying to get around him. This being the defending winner of the 600, yes, admittedly a range shortened one, but he was putting on an absolute show. And I was saying, man, this reminds me so much of Jerry Nadeau in that Coast Guard car in 2000 and how strong he was in the opening stages of it. In that one, Nadeau actually led some laps. Nemechek didn't quite get there, but it was impressive. I think I stand by it that I think that despite this finish, where again, he ends up 2 laps down in, looking at the results here, 27th there at the finish, But on top of his sixth place qualifying run and defending it for as long as he did and getting stage points, I thought it was arguably a career run for him. I thought that was tremendous there. And Hocevar was very much the same. And this wasn't the first time we've seen Hocevar be really impressive. Yes, he was in the middle of that three-wide deal there when the caution came out at the end of the Atlanta race, but also at Bristol, remember, not too long ago. He was working his way into the top 5, had a disastrous pit stop that just took entirely too long and took him completely out of contention. But right up to that point, looked like he was going to win that. Talladega, he kind of wedged his way into Denny Hamlin's drafting line, and maybe things could have worked out one way or another. It seemed like I kept seeing the 77 in and around kind of the lead pack portions of that race too. Didn't work out there because we did hear, and again, the booth did an actually pretty good job with this, describing the fact that that's kind of the missing link, is being able to, finish these races, cash them out, get those good finishes that you get in stages 1 and 2, and actually kind of, be able to capitalize on it. 600, of course, is a very proud history of many first-time winners. Nadu ultimately didn't get that one in 2000. He blew the engine after a rain delay in the middle stages there. But Matt Kenseth, Jeff Gordon, Bobby Labonte, Casey Mears, other drivers along the way. Austin Dillon, right? Drivers that have really been able to kind of capitalize on, getting the best run that they could get in that event, despite it being such a challenge for new teams and old alike. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be this time, and in dramatic fashion was right up there in the front row, gets up there and starting the last stage, and the engine just lets go. And it's so strange to me that the broadcasts always say, like, oh, we don't really see engines blow anymore. Feels like that's about the 4th or 5th time I've heard that this year. Didn't we have Denny Hamlin blow an engine at Texas? And didn't we have, this happened a couple other times this year? Didn't Shane Van Gisbergen blow an engine at Daytona or something of that nature? It's happening. I think that these teams are really taxing every element they can to try to get more competitive here. And maybe through this confined box that they find themselves in with this next-gen car, you always see the teams blurring out the suspension behind the wheels there and seeing what that different deal is. But maybe it's the engines is the next step here, and they're just trying to get the most out of it. And, maybe they put a 500-mile engine in a 600-mile race, and that's just how it kind of turned out. But regardless, he was there tonight, despite the 34th place finish. Fine effort, and undoubtedly, as I think it was Steve Letarte was saying this there at that point, he's going to find himself in that position more times this year. It's just a matter of how those are going to turn out, whether it's within his control or without his control, and can he actually cash that in and have a good finish. So we'll see if that was going to be the story this year. Yeah, Blaney has 2 blown engines this year. Yeah, there you go. AJ blew an engine in Kansas. Yeah, he blew an engine at Daytona also. Yeah, he got that too. So yeah, that's kind of where we've kind of been all this year. This kind of brings us into the last place battle, which itself was really interesting. There was actually a very, very competitive battle at the back. While we had a great battle up front, and you saw Kyle Larson and Chase Briscoe really kind of fighting, rooting and gouging at the front of the field there to try to lead the first lap. Kind of reminiscent of, I guess it was 96 or 97, when you had like a 2 and 3 wide battles at the front for a longest race of the year. And everyone's like, what are they doing? They're going to just wreck the whole field. Very exciting stuff, but had it the back of the field too. What was great was this battle between Josh Bilicki and Derek Kraus in the number 44 for the New York Racing Team. Again, they moved to the back of the field. They were in the last row when the race started, and Bilicki kept running the high lane, and Kraus was running the bottom lane, and they would always keep coming up off each other off of turn 4, and it was like neck and neck, and then one would get in front of the other, and they were trading that spot for probably about the first 20, 25 laps, and made things really exciting, and to the point where people listening to Bilicki's radio, they were actually pretty excited whenever they got back around the 44. Ultimately, in their situation, the cars in front of them were more or less single file, so they ended up actually losing some ground to the cars in front of them. But still, they put on a good show, and it shows, just like I always talk about the last car site there, you can see great racing wherever you are in the field. It may be the best race of the entire field is for 25th, and maybe it's for last place. Maybe it's not really happening up front. That's one of the most exciting things about going to a race in person. is, there's only so much that can get shown on TV, but then you see the other aspects of it there too. So I think that's a part of it. So this traded back and forth for a good portion of the first stage of the race there. Again, Bilicki struggling on old tires there and just hanging on to the end of that. Unfortunately, they get new tires and then immediately drop one on the track. The right rear, he ends up losing 2 more laps. That pretty much set him in last place for about 7 laps down, I believe, at that point. And was still a couple laps behind Kraus. And it looked like that was going to be more or less the battle for at least through the first half of the race. Then Jimmy Johnson gets in an accident off of turn 4, slides into the outside wall, commented on the radio that he was very surprised the car took off the way it did. As Steve Toronto and I believe NASCAR Man were pointing out as well, eerily similar to what happened to Johnson in his first Cup start back in 2001. A little bit of a preview of things to come in 500 days, that indeed he did slide into the turn 4 wall while running mid-pack and then drop towards the back of the field in that one. In this case here, Jimmy bounced off the outside wall. You had a couple other cars involved there with Cole Custer and Connor Zilich spinning out to the inside. Both of them continued, but Johnson didn't seem to have too serious of damage. But by the time he got to turn 4, it was clear he had both right toe links broken, driving the car diagonally behind the wall. The team spent about maybe 2 or 3 laps looking over the car and then pretty much just called it a night at that point. And they were declared out really at the moment that they took over the last spot. So Jimmy Johnson in his 700th Cup start, unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection, which was absolutely relevant in Saturday's race here for the Xfinity Series. It's going to be Jimmy Johnson last in the 600. I believe it's the 3rd time he's been last in the 600 since the year 2020, in a race that he won 3 consecutive years. And you think back, I think the last time 2 years ago, we were on this show talking about the fact that the Legacy Motor Club had all 3 of their cars crap out at about the exact same time. Like one ran over a piece of debris that went through the radiator of another car, and then Jimmy Johnson wrecked at the same time, and all 3 of them were in the garage. It's the first time since then. So I guess it was good that the other 2 teammates seemed to have a much better race after this, unlike Jimmy's run there. But as Jimmy indicated through his media availability this week, this will not be his last Cup start. He's still planning on running at least part-time going forward. Don't know what his next start will be. There's been some speculation about Dover, certainly understandably given his history there. But we'll see how things work out on that. Seems like he's preferred, Kansas and Indianapolis and things like that. Certainly tracks that he more or less owned at one point, as he had at Charlotte for much of his career there too. But unfortunately, he does end up being your last car story today, which is a shame because he had a very solid run in practice and then 17th in qualifying, which is head and shoulders above any run he's had in the 84 so far. In fact, looking over kind of drafting the article going into tonight, it's basically the best qualifying he's had since he started, I believe, 14th for the fall race in Kansas back in 2020. Of course, back then, qualifying procedure was a bit different during the COVID era. But regardless, a fine qualifying effort for him in the 84 team. And again, I think showed some good abilities there for the Legacy team going forward. I think they're ones to watch. I think they're going to be really interesting this summer stretch, and hopefully they can keep that going. This race is kind of an interesting turning point. You kind of get through the 1/3 mark of the season there, and then you get kind of the this baton march towards the playoffs. And, some teams struggle in the summer and some don't, but we'll find out what side of the story they're going to be on going forward. So that'll certainly be interesting. Zane Smith clobbered the inside wall in the backstretch, broke loose in front of Shane Van Gisbergen, and that was a short night for him. Good to see him okay. Ryan Blaney was my fantasy pick, so of course he had to get wrecked and got clobbered there by Kyle Larson and Daniel Suarez after a tangle with Chase Briscoe. I really thought that paint scheme I thought was pretty slick. I was looking to support his sponsor and find the that new Body Armor Chill beverage there because it just sounded good on a warm day here. But unfortunately, I guess everybody else in our town had the same idea because they didn't have it there. But unfortunately, he ends up out of the race there in the 38th spot there with Kyle Larson in 37th and Suarez in 36th. Larson starting outside pole, spun out the beginning, and again, some interesting connection. I had forgotten about this for sure about Stewart Tony Stewart doing his double in 2001 and spinning out the beginning of the 600 and recovering to have a decent finish in that race. Again, a preview of another episode that we're going to be doing on 500 days in the near future. But Larson, in this case here, just had an off day. I mean, I guess we could kind of get into the Indy 500 here in a little bit and kind of discuss that. But again, unfortunately, just, whereas weather was the problem last year, this year it was just cars just not handling well and just being in the wrong place at the wrong time in a different sense. And so Larson ends up unofficially in the bottom 5 again, this waiting for the post-race inspection to come up here in a little bit. So we'll see what the story is going to be from there. Other drivers further back, Austin Cindric lost a couple laps towards the end of tonight's race, had an unscheduled pit stop. Didn't see any updates on that, but noticed that on one of the restarts there, so I wasn't sure exactly what was happening. Cody Ware recovered to get a 25th place spot after running about third from last in the opening stages. Connor Zilich, in his second career Cup start in the first Coca-Cola 600. Should have won the Xfinity Series race yesterday. Didn't quite pull it off there. But after starting 33rd, finishes in the 23rd spot. So a good recovery from his last place run in his debut at COTA not too long ago there. So a fine job by him. Ty Dillon in the top 20 there in the 19th spot. Shane Van Gisbergen making capitalizing on some good runs here over Riley Herbst in their ongoing Rookie of the Year battle. Van Gisbergen in the 14th spot, keeping his nose clean right behind Eric Jones. Jones was in and out of the top 10 for a good portion of this race, got shaken out there towards the end. Again, mentioning his teammate, John Hunter Nemechek, a bit further back. Top 10, Ryan Preece did a fine job there. And Brad Keselowski, 2 RFK racing cars in the top 10. Keselowski didn't seem to get a whole lot of attention compared to his pole at Wilkesboro there last week. But a fine run for him. Michael McDowell, same deal. He got at least, actually, McDowell seemed to get a couple more mentions in this, especially after his great run at Texas not too long ago. Good to see McDowell in the Spire effort being able to come away with the top 10, even after the disappointment that happened with Carson Hocevar there, too. Christopher Bell, the defending winner, ends up in the 8th spot. But again, Chastain, your winner from the 40th spot, leading only 8 laps of the race, beating William Byron, who led 283 of the 400 laps. Byron in the 2nd spot, Briscoe. AJ Allmendinger, fantastic job for him. He seemed to really just kind of start sticking to the bottom groove there and work his way up. And I almost thought he was a lap car at some point there, because it's just been such an off year for the Kaulig team, with just about this only exception being Ty Dillon in that 10 car. We didn't really see Ty Dillon hardly at all this time, but Allmendinger did a fine job out there. Great finish for him in the 4th spot, just ahead of Keselowski. Chase Elliott, the other driver not mentioned here in the top 10, taking home the 6th spot, and then further back, Noah Gragson in the 10th spot there for Front Row Motorsports. So a good kind of eclectic mix of different teams, multi-car teams, 4-car teams, 3-car teams, and so forth here in the mix. So good to see all that shaken out there. But again, I would say a really, really enjoyable race. I really enjoyed it. It was great to see Chastain do so well as another driver that's a fan favorite, for him to kind of start picking up before going into the summer stretch here, and maybe being able to capitalize on some good runs, whether it's Michigan or Pocono or some of these other venues coming up here. It's certainly good to see, and hopefully we'll see that out of some other drivers here too, and I think add some other intrigue going into the next stretch run of the season here. So yeah, I thought it was really good. I really, really enjoyed the Cup race tonight. There's so many times where it just feels like the 600, doesn't, quite, I mean, back before the next gen car. Of course, the next gen car races at the 600 have pretty universally been pretty good, especially the first one there, where you had all the craziness and Buscher flipping over in the infield grass. Yeah, I mean, they've really put on a good show there, and I'd love to cover a race at Charlotte one of these days. I'm still hedging my bets about the possibility of Wilkesboro getting a points-paying race next year. Just starting to have vague outlines of what the plans will be for full-time into next year's trackside coverage. But that's another one to look at the same time. So, again, congratulations to Chastain. Again, pending the results post-race inspection. Did a fine job out there. Just love seeing a one-on-one battle. And, yeah, and, again, working traffic and trying to find a way around another driver out there. And luckily, we had a long enough run. We didn't need a late race restart. We didn't need 7 or 8 overtime finishes. They put on a show out there, and I thought that was really good. And it had some good storylines, and I love to see where a lot of these are coming up soon here, too. We do still need more work on this car, undoubtedly, despite the fact that it seems like it works really well at these quad ovals. I think when you compare it to the Xfinity and the truck races at this exact same track this weekend, those were downright exhilarating. I would still argue, despite the fact there was a great battle at the finish for this win, and there were some decent battles and storylines along the way, I was thoroughly enjoying the Xfinity race. I mean, I'd say particularly the Xfinity race, Truck Series race to a degree as well, but especially the Xfinity Series race. Connor Zilic was just incredible out there. Absolutely just dog tracking that thing, getting it right down on the apron and skating the back of the car out there. I thought for sure he was going to just storm up there and just blow the doors off William Byron or whoever else was up front there, and pull it off there. Ultimately gets the second spot. But it's obviously not the first example of Zilic being, incredible. Of course, he's already won at Watkins Glen last year in the Xfinity Series, but he was absolutely, I felt, stealing the show in that race, and he was so much fun to watch. And there were so many guys that were just completely running over the tops of each other. Ryan Sieg, with an incredible save down the back straightaway, was knocked sideways by Austin Hill. Hill coming up to apologize to him afterwards. An incredible save when he could have just easily clobbered the inside wall, but saved a car that was undoubtedly very fast and will be at least one that they can use at another 1.5 mile or speedway race down the stretch. Fine showing for him, despite the 15th place finish that resulted from it there. Looking through the results, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. That, of course, being Sammy Smith, disqualified for running below minimum weights in post-race inspection. Sammy Smith disqualified for the race, taking away what would have been a second last place finish in about a month for Parker Retzlaff. An engine failure for the number 4 team on a very, very difficult day for the Alpha Prime Racing team. I hate to see Tommy Joe Martins and those guys struggle. For those of you who did see my show back on Tuesday, when I discussed the Talladega weekend, you see that I do have the fender off the 4-car from the Talladega race when he had the big wreck there with Ryan Sieg towards the end of that event, and that made it back here to LASCAR headquarters. Retzlaff, in this case, with an engine failure that ended up dropping him out of the race. Brad Perez and Matt DiBenedetto with various issues there at the beginning of it. DiBenedetto had a great qualifying run, 16th place, but immediately had some issue with the track bar, rear of the car starting to shift around, causing a lot of smoke in the cockpit. He ends up spinning many laps behind the wall, ultimately drops out of the race with suspension issues. Hate to see Brad Perez struggling as well. Issues with electronics, car shutting off, then another time running over a piece of debris, put him in the wall, stalled at the exit of pit road. He had to spend time behind the wall. Perez actually finished the race under power, though about 20 or 25 laps behind the leaders. But then you go to the front of the field and the exciting part of the field here. After Sammy Smith's disqualification, that improved Dean Thompson to his first career top 5 a year after his Xfinity Series debut, with Sam Hunt racing a fine job for the number 26. I thought he did a hell of a job out there for Sam Hunt, and being a relative newcomer to the Xfinity Series after years in the trucks where he was often just in the wrong place at the wrong time, especially when he was driving for Tricon Garage. Good to see him get some good runs up there and get recognized for it as well. He went as high as second at one point. Seemed like he was going to maybe do something for the lead there. Didn't quite get up there, but he was definitely up there that day, and it was very enjoyable. And then, of course, the other sentimental story that got a lot of press from this was Ryan Ellis coming home, finishing in the 9th spot initially, then inherited the 8th spot after Sammy Smith's disqualification, which, by the way, JR Motorsports has decided to not appeal. They said that they made a miscalculation as to the car's weight, so that will not be pursued. So the finishing results should still be the same. But regardless, even before the disqualification, Ryan Ellis got his first top 10 finish in the Xfinity Series after 13 years and 144 starts in the series, driving start and park entries, sometimes not being in the car at all. He was a PR representative for Go Fast Racing and Matt DiBenedetto back in 2017. There were other times he missed the show. I remember talking to him at Phoenix when he failed to qualify for Mike Harmon at the end of the year, and he was still trying to kind of figure out what his deal was going to be the next season. And again, just trying to, work out whatever deal it was. But a wonderful number of messages. Checking these out. After went to see a movie last night, seeing all these messages for Ryan afterwards, it was just tremendous. So I'm glad so many people recognize that and how hard he's worked. He's been the subject of a number of articles on Last Car, whether it's been start and park efforts for like the Motorsports Group or driving for FDNY Racing or Norm Benning in the Truck Series. And then just kind of making things, just work out, just try to get as many laps as possible. It's good to see him get that run, and it's good for the Mario Gosselin times, also the Jesse Iwuji Motorsports joint effort there as well. Good to see them get that good run, and good to see the 71 up there, and as well, after starting 30th on the grid, which is a tremendous effort there at the same time. So congratulations again to Ellis for a tremendous run. Good to see Brennan Poole okay after a very savage hit to the outside wall. He and Jeb Burton tangled up there at the end of the race. Burton almost sliding into the pit stall where William Byron's crew was celebrating the Xfinity race that Byron shouldn't have been in. But regardless, again, good to see Poole okay after another savage incident, very reminiscent of what he had at Bristol with the damage that was suffered to his car in that incident there too. But good to see him okay there at the same time. But a very physical race, but a very enjoyable race. I have to say, those cars almost looked like they were too fast for the track, and they were just having such a hard time hanging on, and it was really, really compelling to watch. I'd love to see the Cup Series get back there. I think that the kind of racing we saw tonight on the Cup side is about as good as you're going to get for the 1.5 mile tracks with this car, and how difficult it is to pass and how difficult it is, to kind of just preserve your equipment and kind of stay up there as well. But the Xfinity Series was just exhilarating. I'd almost probably say it was the race of the weekend, in terms of the competitors that were up there. So, yeah, very enjoyable race on that side there, too. But again, your Sammy Smith being your last place finisher. First time the number 8's finished last in an Xfinity race at Charlotte since 1994 with Kenny Wallace. The first time a driver was disqualified, or last by disqualification in an Xfinity race at Charlotte as well. So disqualifications becoming a much bigger story in recent weeks. Certainly the double DQ at Talladega. Sammy Smith kind of being on both ends of it now was kind of my subject in the article here, because, of course, at Rockingham, Smith inherited the win from Jesse Love after Love was disqualified at the Rockingham win there. So that was another part of it. Chandler Smith was your last place finisher in the Truck Series race. Multi-truck incident off of turn 4 there, causing some damage there to the number 38. So a good opportunity to kind of feature what's been going on at Front Row Motorsports and them capitalizing on expanding that team. Of course, Smith winning at North Wilkesboro last week and having a fine run out there. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of this sport. You're top of the pile at one point, and the other one you're just under it. And for Smith, that was the situation here. Justin S. Carroll still struggling with mechanical issues there. Again, minimum speed was partly to blame for this, much as we heard at Rockingham, and it sounded like was an issue at North Wilkesboro. I believe they withdrew from that event there from concerns over that. But Carroll, again, a bit further back in the lineup there, next to last in the results. Ty Majeski, Dawson Sutton, and Tony Breitinger in your bottom 5 for the Truck Series race. This was, again, a Corey Heim win there, dominating performance. 98 of 134 laps led for the number 11 team. Ross Chastain, your winner today, finishing in the 2nd spot. Caden Honeycutt still looking for his first truck win, getting in the 3rd spot. Lane Riggs and Kyle Busch rounding out your top 5. And looking further back, this, of course, the big storyline going into this race was the excitement over B.J. McLeod getting the ride in the number 07 for Spire Motorsports, which was definitely exciting coming into it. Seemed like they had a bit of issues in practice with the truck bottoming out and kind of adjusting to it. Those issues really continued into the race, and then got some fender damage during one of the altercations on track. Unfortunately, left him further back in the field, but regardless, still recovered to get a 15th place finish. which, given the fact that he hadn't run in the Truck Series for as long as he and had to adjust to it with limited parameters to practice and everything that's around there now, I think they did a fine job out there. And hopefully there's going to be some other opportunities where he can break into the top 10 or even do even better than that. McLeod very confident in how he could actually compete in that series as well. McLeod, of course, the team owner of the Live Fast Motorsports team in the Cup Series. Often see him at the super speedways now. Led some laps at Talladega last spring. Looked really competitive there as well. But hopefully things will turn around for him and keep that going, because it was really exciting. Much like with Ryan Ellis being a story in the Xfinity race, and Dean Thompson there as well. It's good to see BJ get a lot of his attention there too. Very reminiscent of the deal at Charlotte in 1987, where Jimmy Means was driving the car previously driven by Tim Richmond and running it in the fall race at Charlotte back when they ran the oval track out there, driving the number 52 on the Folgers car, a moment that unfortunately lives in infamy in the mind of Dale Earnhardt Jr., as he was a big Jimmy Means fan, driving that Eureka vacuum cleaners car or the Alka-Seltzer Pontiac in the years after that. Means unfortunately collected in an early accident that wiped out the car, and it was ultimately the only chance he ever got to drive in a Hendrick Motorsports injury. Thankfully, I'm glad the BJ's ride didn't end in that same sense, that, again, they had a little bit of damage, but they salvaged a good run, and I'm glad I wasn't writing about him in the article on Friday, because that would have not been fun. So, again, that's just kind of the nature of it, but again, I think he salvaged a good performance out of that at the same time. So, looking at any of these other runs here too, Brandon Jones in the top 10 for the Tricon Garage deal. Matt Mills, another great run in 7th. Mills seems to always step it up at like Charlotte and Richmond lately. He's kind of really locked in on those tracks, so that's really good to see. Parker Kligerman back with the Charlie Henderson team, getting back at 14th spot there. Stephen Parsons a little bit further back. We saw him get into a top 15 at Texas, this time a little bit further back in the lineup there in 22nd, and then other competitors down from there. So again, solid Truck Series race, a little bit of an altercation at one point there, but Corey Heim once again proving that he is the biggest fish in the smallest pond there in the Truck Series, and it's a matter of time until he runs more Cup Series races. I'm seeing Spencer, I'm seeing your message here as well, about him being expected. Yeah, that's right. Is he running the Robin Hood car at Nashville, right, for 2311? It looks like he's doing that from the run earlier. The one he did earlier this season, what was it, Kansas? He looked really solid there, so hopefully that'll keep going at the same time. So, yeah, great stories all around on that. So, again, solid weekend this weekend at Charlotte, and between the different networks, and we'll see, how that goes. Truck Series broadcast, again, a little bit shaky with the Fox Sports deal there. But again, it's, I don't know, just navigating through it here. I don't have too many new notes on that one there, beyond what's typically been expressed there at the same time. I guess we could go into the Indy 500 from here, and then we'll probably get into the the Earnhardt Senior documentary from there. Yeah, we're about to the 1 hour mark. We'll kind of jump into that here in a bit. Also trying the different setup here. I kind of experimented with this on our Tuesday show. I originally did it without the frame, but it seemed like people in the comments liked the frame on the screen here, so I brought that back. I still left a little too much space above my head here, so still fine-tuning it. I had it set really, really nice for our show on Tuesday, and then, of course, I screwed up the adjustments on my tripod here, so I'm going to need to figure out a way. But I'm glad to have that set up separately, because I noticed a lot of my shows, the camera's like right in my face, the lighting doesn't look good, and every time I touch my computer, the camera just keeps shaking. So now I can touch my computer and it won't shake that, so that's good. So I could just kind of have that set up there as well. So let's go into the Indy 500. What were the thoughts on that? I'm hearing a lot of negative thoughts on that. I don't know if it's just because it was Alex Palou and how dominant he's been in the IndyCar series, whether it's the two lap cars that were in front of the leaders and they couldn't get around them, even though they were technically on the tail end of the lead lap, and thus fighting tooth and nail just in case a late race caution happened to be able to get back around traffic. Kind of reminded me a little bit of the 2004 Daytona 500, where you had Kurt Busch's lap car in the mix, and it was ultimately just a two-car battle between Tony Stewart and Dale Jr., although it was a really exciting bit of showmanship of racecraft there. Really interesting deal there. Marcus Ericsson, of course, past Indy 500 winner, was last in the Indy 500 last year, crashing on the opening lap. This time around, very different result, being up there in position to win his second Indy 500. Unfortunately, just the wrong move at the wrong time, or Alex Palou just had a little extra in the tank, but got back around him. And lap traffic, one way or the other, was a factor in the finish there. And you ultimately had Palou being able to lead the last bunch of laps there. Again, I think that, it's hard for me. I'm not the biggest IndyCar fan. I haven't followed it as closely as I have about 15 years ago. But really, the Indy 500, it's hard for me to think of a bad race there. This one certainly was chaotic in that sense. And I think the way the broadcast started and the comparisons to 1992, which were pretty well suited, I think, for the discussions of it, having drivers crash on the pace laps, having multiple incidents blamed on cold tires or cold brakes, incidents on pit road, just a large portion of the field wiped out in the early laps there as well. Very unusual race there too. Your heart breaks, has to, for Scott McLaughlin. The Thirsty Three is not having a fun day there, with McLaughlin involved in that incident on the front straightaway on the pace laps. If it snapped around maybe just a second later, he would have missed the exit of that pit wall there. Maybe he would have just spun in the grass and maybe could have kept going, unless he hit something else there. But just a disastrous deal. And those pictures are just everywhere. Just a terrible, terrible situation. The stakes are already so high in the Indy 500, and these drivers just dream of winning this race. And there's so much you got to do to even get one of those 33 spots. Even if there's 34 cars on the injury list, there's so much you got to go through there. And then all the other stuff that's gone on with Penske and all that, McLaughlin not being a part of that because of that whole attenuator deal. And then, it has to go to a backup car, and you're just trying to warm up the tires, and then that happens. Just an awful situation. Again, the broadcast, for Fox's enthusiasm over covering, an IndyCar race and kind of wondering where they're coming from with this. I kind of want to get into that. I certainly want to get into that. I know some people were asking about that on this, but, it definitely I'd say the natural drama of the race was definitely still just presented just as well as it had in other broadcasts there, to a certain extent, at least once the race started, in that sense too. Same thing with Marco Andretti having the incident after the restart and wrecking in turn one, rough deal after. I thought it was interesting when Michael Andretti brought up the fact that Marco's now probably run the race more times than Michael's had, and that's kind of putting things in perspective there too. Alexander Rossi with the car catching on fire. Rinus VeeKay with the scary pit road incident where he lost the brakes and had to skate it into the inside wall. An equally scary incident for the pole sitter, Robert Schwartzman, colliding with his pit crew there. 4 members of the crew, just had nowhere to go in a shocking situation. It looked like the only one crew member was hurt, at least from the initial reports, and it wasn't anything life-threatening, thankfully. But yeah, those crew members, they put their lives in their hands, for sure. Shortly after this, Kyle Larson, of course, involved in the incident there. Didn't seem like that backup car was running very well in this race at all. Was kind of running mid-pack for most of it. Didn't seem to be running as strong as he did last year. But ultimately gets involved in an incident there with Stingray Robb and Kiffin Simpson, and drops him out back in the 27th spot. Congratulations to the viewer that correctly guessed the 27th spot to the giveaway I had. I had a extra diecast of the number 17 from last year that I gave away in a contest there. Only one person picked 27th, and nobody picked a position any lower than that, which was interesting, which ultimately ended up being the right guess. So congratulations to that individual. Ryan Hunter-Ray, disappointing end to that day as well. After driving his backup car, they were scrambling to get together, similar to Ross Chastain in the race just tonight. Looked like maybe they were going to steal one, and Dreyer and Reinbold were going to kind of cash in there and have a good run. Unfortunately, mechanical issues there. Just a disastrous deal for him as well, but looked really good out there. It was flashes of 2014 when he won that dramatic battle there with Castroneves. An unfortunate situation there at the same time. Jack Harvey leading some laps further back in the pack. Looking through the rest of the field here, Connor Daly leading for a section. Seems like he's doing that just about every year, so that's really been exciting to see. Unfortunately, doesn't quite cash in. Gets the 10th spot. Takuma Sato also on the wrong strategy, apparently, towards the end of the race there. Looked like he was going to be one to really, people are going to have to just rip the win out of his hands there when he started middle of the front row and was leading those laps there. It seemed like he's going to keep that streak going from his past 2 wins. Unfortunately, have to wait for another time there, as will Joseph Newgarden with an issue there on pit road that ultimately took him out of the race in the closing stages when he had been battling among the top 5 there. So once again, the three-peat in the Indy 500 remains just as elusive as it ever has been, whether you're looking at the current group of drivers or whether you're looking further back to other competitors from the past there as well. Incidentally, mentioning the first time that the number 3 has finished last in the Indy 500 since 1961, which was a driver that started in the 2nd spot and fell out after 2 laps. So kind of a rarity in that sense there too. But Marcus Ericsson in the 2nd spot. David Malukas 3rd on the podium there. Fine run for him, getting to finish ahead of Pato O'Ward, who seemed to be well favored after his near loss last year. But Malukas was very impressive. I think AJ Foyt's team in general has a lot to be really encouraged about there. Santino continues his top 10 streak there in the Indy 500. He looked really good out there. And Malukas even better to get up into the 3rd spot there. Did a fine job. Ultimately, we had a caution just near the end. So ultimately, the drivers crossed the finish line, crossed the yard of bricks there under the yellow flag. At least, you could conclude that because Fox didn't show it on camera. And this is where we do have to talk about Fox and all that. So going into this Indy 500, I was very curious as to why Fox was so enthusiastic about covering the IndyCar series, despite not seeming to fully understand the series or who was great in the series and why or anything like that. They did do these ad campaigns with a couple of the drivers like Newgarden and Palou and others, and it was great to see, that enthusiasm. They were very popular. I mean, they played them back, the Super Bowl and so forth this year. But, of course, during this first part of this Fox part of the NASCAR season, we saw how that seemed to have an even more negative effect on the NASCAR coverage, whether it was the marketing or just the quality of the broadcast in general. It was kind of really, really iffy there at the same time. So, and actually that reminds me of something too. That's something I kind of overlooked here too. Was it the Truck Series race or was it the Xfinity race that had Kevin Harvick in the booth? Because whichever one that was, Harvick was just not very good. Oh man, Harvick that was rough. That was really rough to listen to. I was so disappointed with that because, Harvick's very good on the podcast. He's good at the analytical side there. I still think he comes off almost a little too serious for the role, which is a little unfortunate. Like maybe I don't know where else that would work, or maybe if he just kind of had, something where he could just talk about the technical side of it or something. But in the play-by-play, it just felt like he was just kind of trying to perform it, but he was just kind of saying the things that he kind of sounded like he needed to say, but it never felt very natural to me. It felt very awkward and kind of just uncomfortable. Was that the truck race? I don't know. I'm trying to remember what it was, but I thought that was really rough. But then similar to this in the Indy 500, right off the bat, right when I first heard Will Buxton, like I've been familiar with Will Buxton from his pit road report before, Ted Kravitz now does his job now in Formula One, being the pit road guy and these infamous clips from Drive to Survive where it's like, well, to win the race, you have to finish in first. It's like, okay, he's Yogi Berra, I guess, in the Formula One world there. But I always found his enthusiasm from pit road quite good. I think that I've always sympathized more with pit reporters because they're closer to the action, and that's where I've always been more comfortable covering things from the track there too. And I liked Will's coverage in Formula One, even though I'm not that big into Formula One. But him taking on this IndyCar deal, it's like, wow, okay, in the interest of, once again, having different people do play-by-play, I applaud them for doing that and trying something different. I still think Lee Diffie would be way better though, in that sense. It's unfortunate because right from the start with Will Buxton, I was perplexed by how somber he sounded and how kind of he was trying to sound serious and epic, but there was something about it that just sounded, the way I put it was funereal. It just sounded like he was describing something like something really awful had happened or something, like he's doing the news or something. And that wasn't quite right. That didn't fit there. And I was thinking maybe that would change in the race. There were some moments. I like the way he kind of described how the different strategies were playing into it and kind of playing off each other, or when the strategies would kind of merge. I thought he did a pretty good job of that, although that could be kind of attributed to Townsend Bell and oh gosh, who was the other one? Was it Hinchcliffe there in the booth, and them kind of playing off each other? Like, that was good. I mean, Townsend Bell and Hinchcliffe are, they've been great with whoever they're working with, whether it's Bestwick or anybody else there, Diffie or anybody else from there. But yeah, I don't know. I never fully adjusted to Will Buxton there in the booth. I don't know if it's been any better in the other races. Our William Saki covers the IndyCar series there, so I know he's been watching that much more closely than I have there. But yeah, I don't know. It wasn't. It made me miss kind of Lee Diffie doing it, which isn't good. You don't want to be thinking about a different broadcaster when you're listening to somebody else do it there. You kind of like to hear them do their own. So while I do applaud Fox for trying something different, I wasn't that crazy about that. Now, the other thing too, I couldn't help but draw the comparison between the 2001 Daytona 500 and this particular race, because back in 2001, when they covered that race, they brought all their personalities out to be a part of the event. That's why they brought Terry Bradshaw out there. And you had Malcolm in the Middle out there, and you had other people like being a part of this event to kind of promote. It's like, this is Fox, and here's our personalities, and they're part of these shows, and we're going to cross promote this way. They were certainly doing that. I don't blame them for doing it. They brought Michael Strahan out to be in the pace car. They brought, what was it? They had Derek Jeter and A-Rod doing the call to drivers to their cars and stuff like that. And a lot of that goes kind of, awkward and kind of weird, but, that was is fine and all that. I was not impressed with the use of AI in the Michael Strahan program. I thought that was pretty terrible. It looked like crap. I'm not a big fan of all that. I haven't really made a big public statement about that, but I'm definitely not a big supporter of that. I mean, I think, I've tried to support artists, as best I can there, whether it's commissions or promoting their work or anything like that. I think that's just a much better way to do it. And I think especially as somebody that creates historical content, I do have concerns about, what's the future of that going to look like? Because people don't like it. You can tell that people don't like that AI stuff. I know it may be easier, and there's like, concerns about like, is it just the same thing as like is it art the right way or the wrong way, and trying to kind of go wide of the mark. But I mean, I just keep coming back to the fact that, look, when you see it, you don't like it. I mean, there's some people that like it, but there's a lot of people that don't like it. It's just like, it's like, whether like fingers don't look right or writing doesn't look right. In the case of full transparency, the one thing I've used AI for in my own work is in transcriptions. I use a website that it does save time in this context, where you can upload an audio file and it does a transcription of it. But much like anything else in AI, there's a ton of errors in it. So it only saves you so much time. So it's at least not going back and forth and typing 2 or 3 words at a time like I did when I was writing the J.D. McDuffie book. It saved a lot of time to be able to get a rough draft of it, then listen back over it, correct everything, and then start using it. That's the only one I've really used in that sense there. I've really tried to avoid the other aspects there when it comes to artwork and so forth. In fact, I'm in the process of trying to revamp some stuff there with the website. Further down the line, I've populated stuff in my online store, for example, and I have some new items that I'm looking to add there as well. Those are all either my own designs or, something else that was commissioned there at the same time. So that's kind of where I stand on that. So yeah, when I see these segments, it's just gross. And it's unappealing, and it's just not enjoyable. I think so. I'm tipping my hand here a bit on that, but it kind of was, it just kind of sent the wrong message, I think, in this case in particular, because Fox was really just pushing this so much. And it was like, I don't know if there's anybody that excited about IndyCar right now. Maybe the Indy 500, but like IndyCar in general, like the championship, like the individual events. I mean, guys like, David Land or, others that are involved in the sport. They're passionate about the sport's history. Marshall Pruitt, another great example there too. People like that follow the sport that closely. That's to one extent there, but I don't feel like Fox Sports is in that same group. I think they just saw another opportunity to just try something new to kind of cross promote their other properties or something. And if it was going to be this, or if it was going to be bowling, or if it was going to be something else, like it was going to be whatever it was going to be. And indeed, like, yeah, they were doing promos for like the Belmont Stakes and stuff like that during the race there too. It was fine, I guess, the overall experience of it. I mean, the pre-race stuff, I always skip that because it's always just, I usually don't enjoy it. Like, there's been a share of, segments that, some of them are good and some of them are just, and then, you get Tom Rinaldi out there and doing some of these personal interest stories, and like some of them are nice and some of them are just, it's just like, it's just rough. It's like, and I'm not talking about like the Memorial Day aspect of it, because I get that. I mean, that's appropriate because that's what it's all about. It's about service members being commemorated. And I think NASCAR does a good job with that too, with the program they were doing as well. But yeah, some of the other pre-race stuff, I don't really enjoy it that much. I mean, I want to see like a really hype intro, or like if they're going to bring Delta Force back or something like that. I guess they did that for a promo earlier this year. I like the thing they did with the reenactment of Carl Henry, like designing the track and getting the bricks from the bricklayer, and how earnest and goofy it was. I love that. I love that kind of the perception of American history where it's a little bit awkward, it's a little bit silly, but it's kind of awesome at the same time as you just kind of roll with it. That was fun. I liked that. It's so hard to ride that line because it'll go into like one angle or the other. Either it's going to be too silly, or it's going to be like, too serious for what it is or something. But that was cool. I thought that was pretty fun. And, cause that moment had to have happened, where they're like, the guy needs to get all the bricks, to build the track. It's like, how you want it? How big? That kind of stuff. That was fun. I didn't mind that. Yeah, kind of interesting. But, in terms of the broadcast itself, the graphics package was okay. It was kind of comparable to what we saw on Amazon to an extent. I mean, the caution graphics and stuff were kind of good. I saw some complaints about the way the leaderboard was updated, and it did seem like there was a lot of movement on it, even when nothing was happening. Like when they kind of got to the single file line behind the lap traffic, and it was already difficult enough to not focus on the two lapped cars that were painted so similarly to the top two drivers that were right behind them in the same order. But the leaderboard kept changing, and it's like, I don't see anybody passing anybody. Like, how is that happening? Like, that was just kind of confusing. It seemed like there were several times that Palou kind of kept retaking the lead, even though he just did it once in the last, 17 laps of the race. That was kind of strange. Not showing the replay of what happened to, what was it, Siegel on the last lap there, in that incident there that caused the race to finish under caution. I know there was some speculation about how tight of a window they had to work with because the race was pushing later with the rain delay at the start of it, and the other stuff that they had broadcast scheduled later in the afternoon. That's tricky. I didn't really watch a lot of the post-race anyway, it seemed fine. It's just like, it was almost just like a diet version of what we saw on, ABC or ESPN or whatever, whoever the previous, what was it, NBC before this? It kind of felt like it was just kind of like a dressed down version of it. I didn't feel like this was augmented in any way. Like, I know they were trying to do some different things, getting what Gronkowski out there in the snake pit and like just not getting any attention at all, which was kind of funny. Like he's trying to be all hyped, like, hey, it's me, Gronk. And like he's trying to get all excited, and everybody's just like, everybody just doesn't care. Like he almost kind of puts a frost on things. Like it was just kind of goofy. And then you got Jimmy Johnson. You're going to bring Tom Brady out there in front of an Indianapolis Colts crowd. Like what kind of reception do you think he's going to get? Like, half those people are going to like Jimmy Johnson. And then the other half are just not going to like Tom Brady. So like what's going to happen there? It was, I don't know. It was kind of classic Fox. It was just kind of it was trying to do the in your face things like, here's all the cool things we're doing and we're doing this and that and this. But it didn't jive as well. It didn't seem to jive as well with IndyCar as it had with NASCAR in 2001, quite honestly. I think in NASCAR, they gathered a lot of people that really did know their thing, more or less. In IndyCar, they kind of had some of those people, but others where it just didn't flow very well, which was awkward because, of course, the race itself didn't flow very well for reasons that can't be blamed on the network. You just had all these different incidents and so forth that was happening there at the same time. So that was kind of the way, I kind of felt on that. And doing the interview on the front stretch, I don't get that too. That was silly. Doing that. I mean, you got like the most famous, victory lane. You got the elevator, you got the milk, you got all that. We don't need to interview the driver until he gets over there. Why do we have to do it on the front stretch? Like, okay, he gets out of the car and he runs down the, down the track there as well. Why don't you go to commercial, come back when he's on the elevator, and then do the interviews? Like, that would be fine. That's worked well. It's almost like maybe they changed things just for the sake of changing them, but not realizing that the stuff they were changing kind of worked before and didn't really need to be kind of messed with. Whereas I think with NASCAR, when they came in on that, a lot of the stuff they tried out was interesting because they were trying out Fox tracks and the leaderboard that scrolled across the screen, and different graphics for different track conditions. That was kind of fun, but I feel like it felt less imaginative in this one here. And I don't know if that maybe came across better in some of the other pre-race segments. I didn't watch a lot of that. What I did see was, I don't know, okay, I guess, but I mean, it wasn't my thing really. So, I don't know. Yeah. I thought the Gronk thing was cringe. He was up there. I mean, he's trying. God bless him. He was trying, and he was trying to get people hyped up. People that are already drunk and dressed up in costumes and, and then like doing this and that. And they're already going to be as hype as they're going to be. And, Gronkowski out there be like, I'm here. And it's like, okay, yeah, like it didn't really add anything. It's like, I'm sure they were like, they're going to have everybody be in the crowd, but like, look, it's the guy. It's the guy from the thing. Like, it's like, okay, come on. I don't know. But, I don't know. I like the starting lineup. I like the lineup thing they did. I mean, I like that they kept that the same. They had Alan Bestwick doing it. I don't know if my camera moved that direction a little bit. There we go. I like that they had the camera angle on that stay the same, and they did the I didn't mind the DJ that was doing the music. That was fine. That was appropriate. And then, all the standard stuff was good. Certainly the low flying helicopters for the parade laps, that was unusual. A lot of people make comparisons, rightfully so, to the 92 Hooters 500 and the celebration of Richard Petty's last start in the championship race there. Definitely memories of that. Really, really low flying helicopters too. People that were there for the race definitely got their money's worth. We thought about covering that one this year, but we ultimately did the Talladega deal instead. But maybe one of these years we'll have to check that out. I feel like if we do that, I'll probably do it as a fan the first time because I've just never been. And there's just a lot to kind of take in on that, but we'll see. That might be something down the road there too. Even though I don't follow IndyCar as closely, it's definitely, it seems like it's one of those events that's just kind of a rite of passage, especially in motorsports. So that's another way to look at that at the same time. They should have had Peyton Manning. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that would have helped. Yes, the Weenie 500. We have to talk about that. Oh, gosh, that was so good. Yes, Death Killer. I love that. We had that circled on the calendar here at LASCAR headquarters. And good for them to make it as accessible as possible. I thought at first it was only going to be on the Fox Sports app. But then they put it on YouTube, so that was good. Um, and they had it in such a way that we could watch it there. I was working from home that day, so I was able to kind of take a break and watch that. That was very enjoyable. Really, really enjoyed that. They did a great job with that. I like the little quirk of fate there, where you have obviously doing it for show, but have the thing where like you have one of them breaking down on the backstretch and dropping back through the field. So you had a last place change there, and a battle to the line there between the Wienermobiles. Everybody just having fun with it. We still should get the Freedom 100 back, especially after all the dramatic finishes they've had to that race. However underpowered the cars are or whatever, but they've just had just insane finishes there, and I don't see why they don't bring that back. We could do both. We can do the hot dog race just as much as the Freedom 100. It only took about an hour cover to cover to get the whole thing in. So something else to kind of look at there. But yeah, no, I thought that was fun. Didn't realize there were so many lyrics to the Oscar Mayer Wiener songs. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, again, really, really enjoyable. Really enjoyable this weekend. The positives far outweigh the negatives. For as much as I think Fox's IndyCar coverage was kind of awkward, and I'm not a big Adam Alexander fan for the Amazon Prime deal. That's really kind of the big notes on it. Everything else was great. Like it was really enjoyable, and checking out all the action through this week here as well. So again, we'll see. Do we have any calls on inspection? I guess we don't. I don't know if we do. Let's see. Da, 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 da. Alrighty. Let's see. Do I have this on here? Oh yeah, yeah. They had that ad for Mobile One that kept popping up on during the Amazon thing, and for whatever reason, they tried to cover all the 42s on that car. I don't know why that was the case. So that was really absurd. Um, but I don't know why that was the case. I don't know why they were embarrassed. If they're so embarrassed to sponsor a team, why not just change the number or just white them out completely? But I don't know. It kind of gave that impression. Maybe it was a coincidence. Um, I'm seeing our comment here as well. You didn't see any complaints about zoomed in shots. Yeah, I didn't notice that either. I thought the Amazon one, it didn't seem to use the trick shots as much. I still would like to see at Charlotte the return to that low ground level shot that NBC used to have, where it's like right down at like track level in turn 3, looking down the backstretch, and you see kind of the ride height of the cars. I know today maybe that wouldn't be as interesting because you got the ground effects and the under tray and the diffuser and all that stuff there. But maybe it would. Maybe it would still be cool. It was always a great shot from back then, and really showed just how fast they're going and just almost out of control they look. I imagine for the Xfinity race, it really would have showed that well, I think. But we'll see if that's something down the line there too. Let's see. Checking. We'll check this. Doo-doo-doo. Cup races from Charlotte. So got Jimmy Johnson winning last place battle there. Did not have any other news on that, but we'll find out further down the line there too. But yeah, don't really have much to say about the Formula One race today. Pretty much, I was having kind of a hard time staying awake during that there too. But the pageantry of that race is always interesting. I did bring out my stake F1 Sauber gear there for that. Unfortunately, that team didn't have too good of a day. One of them getting stuffed in the wall, the other one just kind of running towards the back of the field. But such is the case when you're running further back in the pack there too. Yeah, again, I don't really have too much more to say here. We can do some trivia questions here as well. Let's see here. Oh yeah, the Cletus McFarland deal in the ARCA race. Again, he was just in a difficult situation. I can't be too critical of the wreck he had there. I think he just had, again, he was stuck in a situation where he had older tires at the front of the field. They're just going to try to throw him in the deep end and see what happened. But unfortunately, it did end up wadding up a lot of cars there. And, that's part of the risk of it there. But that's where these series need to kind of police themselves at the same time. Let's see. We kind of reset this. We'll bring out the late 90s deal here, do some questions here for the show this evening. Let's see. Just questions and answers. So, once again, we'll do picks for the categories. Categories, once again, are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Go ahead and mention in the chat which ones you like or anything else that I did not cover here from the thing today. Oh, I'll talk about the Earnhardt documentary on the later part of the show here, now that I know we're later in this. So, again, spoiler alerts. If you have not seen the Earnhardt documentary, parts 1 and 2 yet, I will get into that from here. So if you don't want to listen to that here and you want to watch the Earnhardt documentary beforehand, you can feel free to tune out and you can check out this show later on here from there. So we'll do that at the same time. So we'll do that. Let's see. So we got tracks and we got that too. Oh, one other thing I got actually got this in the mail this last week here. From who is this from? From Andrew H., one of our my Patreon supporters here. It's actually a petition to bring back NASCAR to CBS Sports. We sent this flyer by mail here, which is interesting. It's an interesting case to make for it with the TV contract and kind of looking at what's coming up there. I know that CBS, interestingly, is apparently the network that is going to be broadcasting the World Strongman competition. I believe it is the one that I did last week during the North Wilkesboro race. Attended. But it's good to see CBS still having their sports programming and, not just doing football, but maybe expanding back into it. I don't know. I mean, I think, obviously, if CBS ever kind of returned to broadcasting NASCAR, I don't know if it would ever really, it's not going to be the Ken Squire era. It would have to be something different. Much like when ESPN came back, it kind of created its new identity of its own in 2007, for better or for worse, during that era. Again, it's worth a possibility. I think that if they do, they probably should bring in, again, much like with Amazon, I think I would encourage them to bring in new people. But maybe that'll be the case down the line there, too. So we'll see if that's the other part of the story there at the same time. Let's see here. As we get categories, I think we just have one for drivers, one for tracks here at the same time. Alrighty. Yeah, I don't mind the Cletus and the whole deal there. It's I get, maybe I get where some maybe aren't a big fan of them, with the Talladega Nights aspect of it. I definitely have kind of mixed feelings about, that film's effect on the sport itself. I feel like Days of Thunder treated the sport like it was just, it showed it more epic than it was. And then Talladega Nights showed the sport more silly than it was. And that's kind of the trajectory we've been on since then. It's probably no coincidence that the sport peaked around that same time in 05 and 06. Again, there's a lot of things that are funny and naturally silly about the sport. Some of that's emphasized in the Will Ferrell movie, but some of that's just Will Ferrell, which is, just different. Yeah, I don't know. I talked to him briefly at Talladega. He seemed like a stand-up guy and, interesting personality and, whatever his intentions are or how much further he gets in the sport, it'll be interesting to see. I think, again, new drivers and new teams are something I'm always very enthusiastic about. And, we take on all comers. I've always had faith in the sport itself. If you're not a right fit in the sport, that's going to just kind of happen on its own, whoever you are. And that's where, I think a driver, kind of like talking about Ryan Ellis, gets that kind of respect because they've been in the sport that long and they've endured all this and, kind of worked things out as best they could. And I think that's, that's something that's very honorable there too. So, Cletus could get to that point there too. Certainly the following he has kind of reminiscent to when, NASCAR was kind of attracting other influencers into the sport. It's something that, potentially, even if a percentage of that viewership's interested in the sport, maybe it helps the sport's reach. So, who knows? we'll see how that shakes out. All I know is he had a big entourage wherever he was in Talladega. And obviously, it was one he had circled on his calendar, and the media had a field day with that for sure. We just one moment right here in just a sec. Need to get a little bit of water here. Oh, right on, Andrew. Yeah, I think they still have these on eBay. These Trivial Pursuit NASCAR deals. They're really fun, and we've used this for so many years on this show. And I'm sure there's questions that have come up time and again, or other categories we haven't done as much. But it's always fun, and it's a good thing to just bring along on a road trip as well. So if you if you are interested in those, I haven't put that in my store there, but I know there's some other people on eBay that have sold these. So I'm glad there's a lot of them out in the wild to check out there too. So again, gosh, still trying to get my need to steer my camera around. I don't know why it's turned that far to the right. I need to twist this. Yeah, okay. Is that better? No, that's not really better. Let me bring this back. Bring this here. Let's try to tighten this. Let's try that. It's a little better. There we go. Try to get that more or less centered. Hopefully it's not out of focus. Alrighty. So I do yeah. So I do kind of want to talk about all that. Oh yeah, we had Austin Green win the ARCA race too. Don't want to leave that out as well, especially if we're talking with him at Sears Point last year in the celebration with David Green, his father. Congratulations to him on pulling off the ARCA win on a really interesting weekend in Charlotte. There, our Ben Schneider will be more involved in the write-up there for the post race on that. But very interesting to see, Green pulling off the win there, his first ARCA win in his second series start, and also Will Kimmel going from last place to winning the pole for that race there as well. Very exciting. So some good storylines there along the way in that. So I do want to go into the Dale Earnhardt documentary here. So while people are kind of picking what category, and then we'll do some trivia questions there at the end. I did not watch the ARCA race live, so I'm afraid I can't comment on the commentary there, Willie B, but I'll have to check that out there at the same time. So again, spoiler alert for the Dale Earnhardt documentary. If you have not seen the first two parts, you probably want to cut away here from the show and check this out later. I'm going to probably talk about this for at least a few minutes here, and then do some trivia questions, and that'll just be it for the show this evening. So, as you guys know, I did do 500 days, and it's a continuing series there on Dale Earnhardt's last, starting off with Dale Earnhardt's last race in the 2001 Daytona 500, and kind of contextualizing it. And of course, the next two parts of that series are going to air this next Thursday, May 29th. Again, not a sponsored segment here on this, but on Amazon Prime. Very excited to see what is going to be covered there. I have to say, first and foremost, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought they did a fantastic job putting that documentary together. I think that the people that were involved in it, I thought the trailer was beautifully done. I thought the music they did kind of captured that, kind of lost era in the sport, really, and what it felt like in that era, and how integral he was in that time. But he was not a perfect figure. He was not a larger. He was larger than life in some senses, but also, again, just as flawed and grounded as just anybody else out there. And for the first time, after seeing so many documentaries, whether it was CMT or ESPN doing it or whatever else, I liked that they presented him, in a much more grounded sense in this. And I think the most important thing they did, and I did touch on this on Twitter, was featuring the other people that were around him. Because that was an approach I actually took pretty similarly when I wrote, well, really both my books, but especially the J.D. McDuffie book, where you don't have the person that's around anymore in that sense, and so you have to really talk to as many people as possible. The interviews are like right at the heart of this documentary, and they really are some of the most relaxed and enjoyable interviews, even from people like Richard Childress or Chocolate Myers or Kirk Shelmerdine or guys like that you've heard before. In this case, I think now with so much time passed and now being past Dale Jr.'s retirement, where potentially he's not even going to be in the Xfinity series after last year at Bristol, um, there's now enough distance that you can really kind of understand those stories and they feel really relaxed to tell them there. And I think that's really one of the strong suits. I think the stories about Junior and his sister, Kelly, are really compelling. I think, honestly, as an older sibling myself, I think that was something that, I certainly gravitated to. And I think Last Bro did there as well. And all that they had gone through their life. I know some of that is touched on in some of these other documentaries, but done very well. And what's also interesting is obviously these first two parts, weren't going to talk about every single thing in that era, although it did cover a large path of it there. Again, it kind of it starts in 1979, and the second part basically ends at the end of the 1994 season, and Earnhardt winning the 7th championship, which is a very interesting time to wrap that up because, of course, in 1995, things changed significantly in Earnhardt's career with the rise of Jeff Gordon, the pursuit of an 8th championship, and then that started to kind of change there at the same time. And Dale Jr.'s rise in the, becoming a driver in his own respect, the rise of Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, Darrell Waltrip driving for DEI, Michael Waltrip driving for DEI, and then all of this swinging right into 2001. These next two episodes, I think, are going to be tremendous, really. If they're done with the care that they need to be, and anything close to these first two episodes, I think they're going to be very compelling. I know some people have questioned why certain figures and certain stories haven't been brought up. You'll notice in these first two episodes that they don't really talk about Daytona hardly at all. We don't even see anything about the 79 500, which I thought showed tremendous restraint. There's a little glimpse of it in the beginning, but not really. And it's just kind of presented as just kind of another track in the context of the story. You got Rockingham, Wilkesboro, and Riverside, and all these other tracks there, which is cool. I think that allowed you to kind of focus on just commonalities in his racing ability. But the character of Daytona, I think, is definitely going to have to be a big part of this next part there as well. But even though it's interesting that this era coincided with, again, the rise of Jeff Gordon, the rise of Rusty Wallace, Bill Elliott winning his championship, Bill Elliott winning most popular driver all those years. That happens, but it doesn't go really heavily in depth into any of those. You see glimpses of like Rusty and Elliott. You don't see anything of Gordon yet. It's really interesting how they presented that because you kind of see how the sport was kind of changing to that point, and you kind of understand how figures like that would have come into sport later. At least that's kind of how I felt on that. And that was really interesting. And it must be said, especially coming so soon after the induction of the recent members of the Hall of Fame, I dare the voting group, whoever the next voting group is the next year, I dare them to not vote Neil Bonnet in after this one. I really do think that this documentary and these two parts, especially that second part, that may well get Neil Bonnet in the Hall of Fame. My goodness, that was the emotional heart of that second episode. Between that and Junior's stories from military school and his sister supporting him, and then Earnhardt's friendship with Neil Bonnet, I was so glad. I was so worried that was going to get just kind of brushed under the rug or not mentioned that much, or maybe just hinted at. Yes, there was that Winners documentary that FS1 did a few years ago, which was very good. It had Susan Bonnet, his widow, involved in there. That was so well done and very tastefully done. and you really understand like what Neil went through, and all the injuries that he endured, and just how passionate he was, and what his modus operandi was, what his focus in racing, that he was all out, and how he was similar in that sense to Earnhardt. But unfortunately, kind of like Davey Allison, he was just involved in all these really serious accidents and was hospitalized a lot more. Earnhardt had his share of accidents in that era too, but even more seriously, and of course the amnesia he suffered after the Darlington accident. Um, so that was presented really well, and my God, the end of the second episode where he's celebrating the championship and he's thinking about him and having to read this script and he just can't get through it. Um, powerful, powerful stuff. My God, it's huge. If Neil doesn't get in the Hall of Fame next year, I don't know what's going on, because I hope that this continues to circulate and bring that to the forefront there, because I thought it was one of the best depictions of Neil, and really his relationship with Earnhardt in that period too. I thought that was tremendous. Right down to what I mean, there's little things too. The footage they showed after the accident in 1994. One thing you'll notice, as I mentioned in the Country Time Lemonade video, that Jerry Hill, Timmy Hill's father, was right behind the accident when it happened. And indeed, when they showed the car getting towed away, you see Jerry Hill's number 56, the bright orange car, sitting there on the apron, waiting for the cleanup to get taken care of, because he was behind the accident when it happened. So it fits in with kind of some other stories that I'd heard about too, but footage that I'd never seen before either. Pictures that Brian Hallman provided, footage I'm sure they got from the NASCAR Classics Library and other resources as well. I love that almost all the footage was accurate to the year that was depicted. There were a couple little things, like in like 1991, there were shots of him racing the Monte Carlo in '89, but really, really small details. Most of it was like right on the money. And showing like him holding off Rick Mast at Rockingham to clinch the 7th championship. It was really good. It was really good. Some of the best interviews I've heard from Kirk Shelmerdine or Childress or, other figures there. They really did their homework and they talked to the right people. It looked like I was a little surprised not to hear Dave Fulton in this one, for talking with Wrangler. It looked like they talked to another representative that was familiar with the sponsorship there. So I was kind of surprised he wasn't part of this there. I mean, you're never going to get everybody. And I'm sure they got their reasons. And there's probably other people that in this next part are not going to be part of it either, that probably you could argue could be in there. But I think what they do hit has the emotional resonance that really kind of brings it together. And it sounds like Junior's really happy with the finished product there, and that's good. It's good the family is feeling that way about it. I think the way they depict Teresa Earnhardt is very interesting, and it looks like she's not in among the interviews at all, that we're getting all these secondhand accounts and very candid opinions on her role in the business and the relationship and so forth. And then, very, very candid stories about Dale himself and just what his focus was and what his focus was not. I thought that was done pretty well. Pretty well. I mean, nothing's perfect. I'm sure if I watched it again, there'd be things I could pick out or whatever. But overall, the experience was very compelling. Very compelling. Even as somebody that knows where this story is going. What became interesting was just wondering how they were going to approach it and what aspects of it were they going to emphasize. And much like Em Lemon did in his video on Earnhardt, you really see like how the sport changed and how Earnhardt kind of, grew as a figure in that sport as it changed. I think that this does just as good a job with it, if not better, because it's focused. I like it doesn't have a narrator, that it's just focused so much on the footage. The footage, I don't really like this expression, but it's kind of true in this case. It really speaks for itself in this. The interviews of the different drivers, the interviews of the different personalities, they do a great job, and it was really, really interesting to listen to. And I would be really, really interested in these next two. I want to see. I'm curious if it's going to mention anything about the safety concerns of the 2000 season, anything 3 before February related. If it's going to mention Adam Petty or Kenny Irwin or Tony Roper in the context of the 2001 Daytona 500, I feel like it's going to have to, because that's when Earnhardt came out with that statement at Richmond in 2000 about the feeling from an open, closed faced helmet that would have the result of acting like a noose that would restrict your movements in an accident in such a way that it would create a more serious injury, like a hanging. Um, that's I'll be curious if that's in there. It feels like if that's not in there, that would be a big thing to leave out, especially since those were the first deaths really in NASCAR, really since Bonnet's accident. Of course, you got outside of like John Nemechek's accident at Homestead in '97, but more in the Cup Series in particular there. I'll be curious if any of that's in there. I feel like the fact that we're going to pick up at 95, and we're certainly going to go through the 2001 season, I would imagine, from the footage that was shown. We're covering fewer years. There's more room to go into those stories there as well. That's going to be interesting. I'll be very curious how they cover that. I think it would be a mistake to skip that, because I think that's such an important part of what happened in early 2001 was what happened with those other three drivers and the continuing effect of it. Now, and then the other part, I guess, is going to be curious is how much further are they going to go down the road? Are we going to talk about bringing the three back and Austin Dillon driving it? Are we going to talk about Junior retiring? Are we going to talk about anything like that? Or are we just going to end in the 2001 season or end with Junior winning the 500 in 2004 for the first time? That'll be interesting. I'm also curious if it's going to include the race in 2000 at Michigan where Kerry Earnhardt raced against Senior and Junior. It feels like that should have a mention because Kerry was in part of the first two episodes. So that's what I'm going to be really going to be interested in seeing there too. So I think it was really, really good. It was really good. So I hope I haven't spoiled too much of it for you if you haven't seen it already, if you're still watching the stream here. But it's very good. It's very good. It does have commercial breaks on Amazon, which is a little distracting, but there's not too many of them, which is nice. I was very pleased. It was very compelling. We were Last Bro and I were just hooked. We were watching it. And then again, the next two episodes come out on Thursday. We'll be watching those. I'm sure I'll be talking about that on our Nashville show next Sunday, and we'll be talking about that. So if you want to see those in advance, then join me here for the show on Sunday, and we can talk about it here. That'll be kind of what we're looking at there. But I thought it was really, really, really well done. So kudos to Ron Howard and the other staff and NASCAR Images and so forth that were involved in that. It looked like they did a hell of a job on this, which is amazing because this is the one subject that it feels like it has just been covered from every possible angle. But the interviews are the heart of it. Until you really talk to the people directly involved in it, that steps things up so much more. And it's not just on what's publicly available information that we've all heard. Now we're really getting the full context of it. And I'll be curious where they go with it because there's going to be some very, very heavy subjects coming up here in these last two. And we'll see how they do it. We'll see how they handle it. So that'll be interesting. So, we'll get into this here. Let's see, where are we with this? We'll do some questions. I just see one for drivers, one for tracks. We'll probably just do a couple here. The show's running kind of long here, but we'll do that. So that was cool. So let me get this brought up. Alrighty. So first question here. What driver won the 1952 Southern 500 at Darlington while wearing Bermuda shorts? What driver won the 1952 Southern 500 at Darlington while wearing Bermuda shorts? Don't look it up. Try to guess it. And we'll go from there. Another teaser for next week. Next Sunday will also be the show where I will reveal the first, second, and third place prize winners in the Cartoon Network Wacky Racing Contest. I've received more than 20 entries. And I have something planned for that as well that I'll be working on this week. So stay tuned on that. If you're in the Patreon, you already know about that at patreon.com/lastcaronbrock. So stay tuned on that. Got some wonderful entries for that project, and it's going to be a real challenge. I already know from what's already been submitted that it's going to be very difficult. If you are still interested in entering the contest, you still can. The entry deadline is going to be this coming Friday at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. No entries will be accepted after that, at least for the contest. Again, if you're posting it on Twitter, you can use the hashtag CNWackyRacing. You can also send it to my email at brockbeard@gmail.com. If you prefer that, we have received some email contest submissions. Last Bro and I will be looking over the entrants there then through Saturday. And then on Sunday during a show, I'll be announcing those. I'll probably just mention at the beginning for people that are tuning in for that as well, depending on how the show goes there as well. And we'll cover that. So that will be coming up here very shortly. Yes, thank you, Jude. I'm glad to sound better too. I have a little bit of the allergies here too, but it's much more manageable than what's been going on here lately. So I'm glad to get my voice back. I'll tell you what, that was pretty scary, to be honest. I really enjoy doing the narrations and the videos and so forth, and not being able to talk. It's the first time I've had that really in that experience, and I will admit it was difficult to deal with, especially for how anxious I was to share what had happened during the Talladega and Charlotte trip there. Luckily, I did do the show back on Tuesday, so if you want those stories, that's all in that video, and you can check that out there as well. I got some show and tell as part of that video too, so if you want those stories, that'll be in that video, as well as my discussion of the Hall of Fame inductees for this year with Kurt Busch, Ray Hendrick, and Harry Gant, as well as Humpy Wheeler getting the Lifetime Achievement Award there. Once again here, what driver won the 1952 Southern 500 at Darlington while wearing Bermuda shorts? Got guesses for Tim Flock, Johnny Mance, Buck Baker, Fonty Flock. Another for Fonty Flock. Okay, here we go. The answer is indeed Fonty Flock. You guys are good. You guys are good. Two of you got that one right. Willie B and Ultimate 23 Dragon. There you go. It looks like we have a call on inspection too. I missed that. Let me look here. Let me check. J Ski, is it on there? Let's see. Checking it out. Looking here. There it is. Yes, 14 minutes ago. Inspection is complete. This is from the J-Ski page. Inspection is complete at Charlotte. No issues for Chastain. He is officially the winner. So congratulations to Ross Chastain. And it looks like no other disqualifications. So Jimmy Johnson will be your feature for the Last Car article posted later tonight. So there we go. So yes, congratulations on that one. And then let's go to tracks, because I know that was another one that was voted on here. Alrighty. Okay. Oh, good guess. Good guess. Fantastic. All right, here we go. What NASCAR Winston Cup track is nestled by Andretti Road? This is appropriate to tie in with the Brickyard earlier today. We'll just do this one more question here. We'll wrap up here, folks. What NASCAR Winston Cup track is nestled by Andretti Road is the question. I know it's pretty late on the East Coast here. It's just after 10 Pacific time, so just after 1 a.m. Eastern time. So thank you to the 47 folks here. Still tuned into the chat here. We'll wrap up here in just a minute, but thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. What NASCAR Winston Cup track is nestled by Andretti Road? Don't look it up. Try to guess it. We got guesses for Pocono and for Nazareth. Do we have any other guesses here? Read it one more time here. What NASCAR Winston Cup track, so keep in mind this is a late 90s deal here, is nestled by Andretti Road? It is a cup track, it says. Yep, just after midnight for you there, Jude. Yep, there you go. Yeah, so kind of get on the later side, but we'll be wrapped up here pretty soon. What NASCAR Winston Cup track is nestled by Andretti Road? Oh, do we get super chat? Oh goodness, I got to do super chats too. Okay, we'll do that after this. So I don't want to miss those. Goodness. Oh, we had a couple. Oh wow. Okay, no, thank you, folks. Let me make sure I get you those there too. Let's see. Alrighty. What NASCAR Winston Cup track is nestled by Andretti Road is the question. We'll go ahead and go down here. Yeah, mid 90s. So, yeah, I think mid to late 90s there on that. So, I say Pocono or Michigan. Yeah. Platinum Paradise. I'm not sure with Jimmy either. I think he just feels like doing uh he just feels like doing it. He's not ready to just be done with it. I think he just enjoys doing it just like he enjoyed driving Tom Brady around today at Indy. So, who knows? All right, here we go. What NASCAR Winston Cup track is nestled by Andretti Road? The answer is Pocono. You guys got it. You guys are too good. Pocono is indeed the correct answer. Blue Moon 95 looks like you were the first one. Ultimate 23 Dragon, you got it as well. Willie B as well. There you go. Yes, 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 yes. So congratulations on that. So really quick, I'm going to get into super chats here, then we'll wrap up here for our show tonight here. Thank you so much, everyone. They're not expected, but they are definitely appreciated here. Let's see here. Where is it? There it is. Bowser Jr. XD for $5. Thank you so much for the super chat here. I'm hoping and praying that Brock has a lot to say about the Indy 500 broadcast because that was bordering on Truck Series quality. It was distracting for sure. Yeah, no, I'd have to agree. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the discussion there. I did touch on that there as well, Bowser. Yeah, it definitely felt off. Like some of the Fox elements were probably the worst elements of that broadcast there. Whereas, probably a lot of the stuff that just traditionally gets added to a Indy 500 broadcast, there's no reason to fix it. That stuff was the best part. Whether it was Alan Bestwick doing the intros for the drivers, or any of the stuff, of course, already set up at the track there. That was fun. But yeah, did I need to do Michael Strahan and his AI video? No, I don't think that was going to be enjoyable at all. So I'm with you there too. Let's see here. Where was it? Oh, I saw you there too. Michael Jensen, thank you for your super chat as well for $10. Thank you very much. Loved all the new people tonight. LaJoy and Edwards were great. Bane as a pit reporter was fantastic. Danielle Trotta back is awesome. Yes, kudos to Danielle Trotta. She was solid too. Plus going the final 60 laps commercial free, A plus for week one. Yeah, I'd have to agree on those points. Again, I still feel like Adam Alexander is not great. He still feels like the one scuffed tire of the three sticker tires on this race car here. I think if he just had something new, I think this would have been legendary. Like it was already really enjoyable. It's just they need to shake off the past a little bit here. Like, come on, it's time. It's time. My goodness. Adam Alexander's been doing cup races off and on since what, 2006, 2007? It's almost 20 years ago. Bob Jenkins only had 20 years to do ESPN. Like, come on. Yeah, but as to the points you brought up, Michael, completely agree. I think they did a fantastic job. I think there was a lot to be really excited about. I'm hoping to watch the pre-race show for Nashville next week and enjoy that and see what see how that is, because I heard that they had like a stage similar to kind of like the old speed stage. I don't know what the nature of that is, but that'll be interesting to see. We got TNT coming up later on that's going to do Sears points, so I don't know if they're planning anything like that. But yeah, no, I think that they did a great job. So thank you for the super chat. Definitely appreciate it there for sure. But yeah, I think there's a lot of positives there to kind of take from that too. But yeah, I like the side by side commercials. I liked the sound editing. It was really good. It felt more engaging. It felt more just plugged into what was happening. It wasn't like where the engine noise was like really distant. It felt like, you were actually like experiencing something, which is exactly what it needs to be. I know they'll be like, oh, you want more, buy a ticket. Well, that's not always practical in a series that runs 38 weeks a year. Like, come on. Like, let's, do you really want to have that attitude towards your fans, or do you want to put on a good show here for them? You're an entertainer, for God's sake. Like, come on. I don't get that. But, I think that's the other part to look at. Oh gosh, Andrew, don't get me started on Put It Out. Like, yeah, that was, yeah. The gopher was one thing, but Put It Out was obnoxious. Oh my goodness. So yeah, that was a whole different story there. At the same time. So that'll about do it for the show here tonight, folks. So again, congratulations to Ross Chastain for pulling off the win in the Coca-Cola 600, now official after the results post-race inspection. And Jimmy Johnson will be your last place finisher, featured on the article later tonight. Congratulations to the other winners this weekend, including Alex Below at the Indianapolis 500. So tremendous weekend of racing. I hope you enjoyed it as well as home. I appreciate you just tuning in here and having me be a small part of your experience this Memorial Day weekend. I wish you all a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. If you have the day off there tomorrow, enjoy that as well and recognize the occasion there for sure. And thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in tonight. So in the meantime, my Twitter feed is @LastCarOnBrock. My Patreon feed is patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock. And of course, there's more videos here on this channel. Our next show is going to be next Sunday. We'll have back to an afternoon show here after the Cup Series race in Nashville. We'll talk about the triple header coming up here with the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and Cup Series. We'll also talk about the remaining 2 parts of the Earnhardt documentary from Amazon. So if you want to watch those there before Sunday, we'll have that. And it'll be on top of that, we'll have the announcement of the first, second, and third place prize winners in the Cartoon Network Wacky Racing Contest. So it's going to be a stacked show. If you want to strap in for that there, it'll be starting about 15 minutes after the conclusion of the Cup Series race this next Sunday. So in the meantime, have a wonderful week, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and I'll see you all next time.